Baby, sit down. Pour something strong. Because what just detonated inside Claressa Shields' inner world is not a fallout. It is a full-blown family civil war being live-streamed to the entire internet, and the woman at the center of it, the greatest of all time. The four-time undisputed world champion herself is watching her own bloodline load the cannons and aim them at the very best friend she used to call a sister. The prison visit rumors, the cheating whispers, the ring camera footage 50 Cent dropped on the timeline like a nuclear payload, the divorce paperwork chatter, Claressa Shields survived every single one of them with her chin up and her fists ready. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares a woman for the day her own brother pulls out his phone, hits the record button, and drags her ex-best friend up and down the internet on her behalf. When your own family starts doing press runs for you, honey, the situation has officially left the group chat, skipped past neighborhood gossip, and entered full national crisis territory. So take a breath. Because by the time this story ends, you will not be asking who is right or who is wrong. You will be asking one question, and one question only. How did Claressa Shields, the woman who beat the entire world in a boxing ring, end up losing every single person she trusted outside of it? Welcome home to Tea with Stella, where the kettle stays screaming and we refuse to water anything down. Everything you are about to hear is stitched together from publicly available clips, public posts, and public statements the parties themselves put on the timeline. Nothing is invented. Nothing is exaggerated. And baby, nothing needs to be, because the truth is loud enough to shake the walls. Now let's get into it, because Claressa Shields' long-standing friendship with Nigeria has officially collapsed on camera. Her cousin Shalita is running weekly live streams like a cable news anchor. Her brother Graham Gamer has entered the arena swinging. And by the end of this breakdown, you will understand exactly who walked away with dignity and who got left on the floor picking up their own pieces. Let's start where the internet exploded first, because the brother did not tiptoe into this conversation. He kicked the door in. Graham Gamer, Claressa's own blood, hopped online and made one thing loud and clear from his very first sentence. He was there to defend Claressa Shields, and he was not asking anybody's permission to do it. When Nigeria sat in front of a camera and calmly claimed that she and Claressa had simply grown apart, that nobody did anything to anybody, that people just go their separate ways, Graham Gamer looked into that lens and told the entire internet the exact opposite. He said flatly that Nigeria had done plenty, that he could name it, and that the only reason he was biting his tongue was out of respect for the family. Baby, when a grown man tells you he is holding back, that is not mercy. That is a warning shot. Then he delivered the line that turned the whole timeline into a courtroom. He said Nigeria had fumbled a friendship with a multimillionaire, and just like that, the story stopped being about two women drifting apart and became a national debate about loyalty, money, opportunity, and what it really costs to lose someone like Claressa Shields from your corner. Because make no mistake, this is not a woman you casually walk away from. Claressa Shields is a two-time Olympic gold medalist. She is the only fighter, man or woman, to hold undisputed status in 3 separate weight classes. She is a Michelin-plated brand with sponsorship dollars, endorsement money, film deals, and a bank account that would make most of your favorite influencers cry into their ring lights. So when Graham Gamer told the world that Nigeria fumbled that friendship, he was not just insulting an ex-friend. He was telling every viewer on the internet, you do not walk away from a queen and expect the throne room to send you a Christmas card. But baby, the brother was not done. Because the second the conversation turned to the past, the story cracked wide open. Nigeria sat on camera and painted a picture of Claressa's childhood that included a cousin who supposedly took her in, took care of her, raised her up until she was around 16 and won her first Olympic medal. And Graham Gamer, Claressa's own flesh and blood, looked at that exact claim and said no. Not exaggerated. Not misremembered. He said flat out that his sister had already won an Olympic gold medal by the time any of this supposed cousin hosting even happened, that nobody was raising Claressa but Claressa herself, that the cousin in question could not even take care of her own children, and that the entire narrative was rewritten history. And that, honey, is the moment the internet realized this was not a simple friendship falling apart. This was a war over who gets to tell the story of Claressa Shields' childhood, and both sides are calling each other liars in public. When the people closest to a legend cannot even agree on where the legend slept as a teenager, every single old claim, every old interview, every old friendly hug at the family barbecue suddenly starts getting re-examined under a microscope. Suddenly, the biggest question is not who broke the friendship. The biggest question is which version of Claressa Shields' entire life the world has been sold. Now stay with me, because this is where the shovels really came out. In her own words, on her own live streams, Nigeria admitted to a past she says she is not proud of. She admitted to running an OnlyFans. She admitted to selling private snaps. She said her price point was $50 to $100 a day, not $2 tricks, and she said it with her chest. But then a caller pressed her on whether she had ever accepted cash for actual physical intercourse, and she denied it, hard, more than once. And that would have been the end of it, except a rival hopped on live, produced screenshots, and claimed she paid for the private snap, downloaded the images, and uploaded them to a public timeline for the whole world to see. The internet, baby, is a landfill that never stops burning, and Nigeria's own past ended up on the same timeline where she was trying to defend her reputation. Now, none of this is here to shame anybody's grown woman choices. Grown women make grown decisions. But the reason this matters, the reason the algorithm can't stop feeding it to you, is because every one of these details is now being weaponized in the war for public sympathy. Because if Nigeria's version of Claressa's childhood is being called a lie by the champion's own brother, and Nigeria's own past is being screenshotted and paraded on the same timeline, then every word Nigeria says from this point forward is walking into court already on trial. Then, right when the timeline thought it had seen the worst of it, the queen herself moved. Claressa Shields posted, and baby, she did not tag anyone. She did not name anyone. She did not even sub anyone directly. She simply wrote that when she tells you she is fully disconnecting from snakes, she means fully. No mutual friends. No kids. No phone calls. No nothing. Now let that sit for a second. She specifically said no kids. That single word, kids, tells you children are somewhere tangled in this situation, and she is drawing a permanent line in the sand across every inch of that connection. This was not a passive-aggressive Instagram quote. This was a surgical amputation performed in front of 40 million spectators, and she did it with her whole chest, no filter, no apology. Then she followed it up with a second post that said people love throwing rocks and hiding their hands, and honey, that is not an inspirational graphic you screenshot for your vision board. That is a confession disguised as a caption. The champion was telling the entire internet that someone in her circle had been throwing stones at her while smiling in her face, and the only person publicly falling out with her in that exact window was Nigeria. She did not need to name her. When you post about snakes right after your best friend of years goes public, the snake already knows its own name. And the snake, in this case, felt every syllable. Which brings us to the moment that made me put my cup down entirely. Because Nigeria, cornered, exhausted, and clearly not ready to be the villain of the story, finally revealed the full weight of what she had been carrying. She looked into the camera and said she had told women to their faces, "You put your hands on Nigeria, I will put my hands on you," but reversed. Meaning she had told other women, real women, on the champion's behalf, that if they came for her friend, they would answer to Nigeria personally. She had made enemies for her. She had issued threats for her. She had put her name, her reputation, and her physical safety on the line for years, defending a friendship that ended with a 2-line Instagram caption about reptiles. Nigeria was not just a best friend. She was, in her own telling, an unofficial bodyguard, an unofficial publicist, and an unofficial cleanup crew all rolled into one, and she got fired via internet post. And then, baby, Nigeria dropped the bombshell that changes everything you thought you knew about this feud. She revealed that Claressa Shields' own family, cousins, relatives, people sharing bloodlines with the GOAT herself, had been feeding Nigeria information to use against Shalita. Do you hear what I am telling you? Claressa is sitting in the middle of a battlefield where her own relatives are handing ammunition to her best friend to fire at her own cousin. This is not a family. This is a war zone with matching last names. And that, honey, is when the picture finally snapped into focus. Because when you zoom out, you realize this is not a two-person fight. This is a five-front war, and Claressa Shields is standing in the middle of every single one of them. On one front, you have Nigeria, the ex-best friend, spilling receipts and defending her honor. On another, you have Shalita, the cousin, running weekly live streams from IHOP booths like she is anchoring the nightly news, with every episode adding new receipts and new claims. On another, you have Jade Davis, who spoke publicly earlier in 2026, adding her own perspective to the pile. On another, you have Graham Gamer, the brother, going on camera reacting and defending. And in the middle of it all sits Claressa Shields herself, four-time undisputed champion, greatest of all time, posting about snakes and disconnection while every seat in her personal life catches fire at the same time. Her friendship circle is exposed. Her family tree is at war with itself. Her relationship keeps getting picked apart line by line every time a suspicious anniversary post drops. Her career, her reputation, her image, her legacy, every single lane is under construction simultaneously. And do you know who has said absolutely nothing this entire time? Not a single syllable, not a single subliminal, not a single carefully worded Instagram story? Remy Ma. The one woman Claressa Shields has been publicly trying to overshadow for the better part of 2 years is sitting in her living room, sipping something warm, watching every single person from that inner circle expose the household one at a time, without lifting a finger. Remy Ma does not need to say a word, baby, because Claressa's own people are doing the interview for her. That is not luck. That is not karma. That, my friend, is poetry with a beat behind it. And here is the part that will keep you up at night, because when you actually line up the timeline, the pattern gets uglier. Every single one of these public breakdowns, Jade Davis speaking out, Nigeria going live, Shalita running the IHOP press tour, Graham Gamer reacting on camera, happened within a compressed window of just a few months. For separate people, from 4 completely different corners of Claressa Shields' life, all speaking publicly, all releasing damaging information, all within the same news cycle. That is not 4 independent decisions. That is a pattern. That is the sound of a dam that spent years holding back water finally cracking under the weight, and everybody who was holding a finger in a leak deciding at the exact same moment to step back and let the flood happen. When 4 people from 4 different lanes tell 4 overlapping stories that all lead to the same conclusion, the audience stops asking whether one of them is lying. The audience starts asking why all of them, at the same time, decided the loyalty account was empty. And that, honey, is the most dangerous question a public figure can ever have hanging over their head. Let us talk about the brothers' most explosive line one more time, because it deserves its own paragraph. When Graham Gamer said Nigeria had fumbled a friendship with a multimillionaire, he did not just insult one woman. He accidentally handed the internet a philosophy. Because half of the timeline exploded in agreement, saying yes, you do not walk away from Claressa Shields, you hold that door open forever. And the other half of the timeline exploded in fury, saying loyalty is not a paycheck, friendship is not a subscription service, and if a woman is treating you badly, her bank account does not obligate you to stay. And just like that, a family beef became a national referendum on money, class, and the price of loyalty in the era of social media. That is not a fumble. That is a viral topic detonating in real time. And every single reaction video, every single stitch, every single quote tweet is now pointing back at Claressa Shields as the center of gravity. The queen never had to say a word after her original snake post, and yet her name is being typed into search bars on every device in America. If that is not brand warfare, I do not know what is. Now let us talk about the cousin, because Shalita Savage is not playing. She has been running live streams that read like federal indictments. She has raised questions about Claressa Shields' finances. She has raised questions about property arrangements. She has raised questions about who has been footing bills, who has been getting bills paid, and who exactly has been benefiting from proximity to a millionaire fighter. Because you cannot talk about Claressa Shields 2026 without talking about the relationship the internet has been dissecting frame by frame. Recent anniversary posts have sparked timeline math that some viewers say does not quite add up. Old Ring camera footage that 50 Cent dropped months ago is being reshared with new commentary. Divorce documents from the past are being pulled up and re-examined. And every one of these threads gets braided into the larger conversation, because when the family war is this loud, every other rumor gets a second life. Every dormant piece of gossip wakes up. Every old timeline becomes a new timeline. That is the price of being the woman in the middle of the storm. The storm does not just eat what is happening today. The storm eats every yesterday too. So who wins here? Honestly, baby, in a family war this messy, nobody walks away untouched. Graham Gamer earned his sister's public gratitude, but he also opened himself up to every camera in the room now that he has planted a flag. Nigeria kept her voice, kept her chest, kept her side of the story on record, but she also handed the internet a dossier of things she said she is not proud of, and that dossier will follow her into every new opportunity. Shalita gets to keep her weekly IHOP episodes running, but she is going to have to live with being the woman the champion publicly disowned. And Claressa Shields? She keeps every belt she has ever won. She keeps every gold medal, every endorsement, every headline. But she also has to walk back into a family gathering where half the chairs have been set on fire on the internet, and she has to figure out which of the people at that table she can actually still call her own. The belts do not warm the couch when you get home. The gold medals do not answer the phone when you need to talk. Money buys the roof, but somebody still has to be under it with you. And the loudest question echoing through this entire saga is whether Claressa Shields, four-time undisputed Queen of the Ring, still has anybody in the corner of the life she lives outside of it. And let me tell you something else that has been quietly rattling around this whole story, because Tea with Stella does not skip the small print. Every time a family war like this hits the internet, there is always one moment that separates a spat from a saga, and that moment is the moment somebody uses the word public. The second Graham Gamer said his sister had cut Nigeria off publicly, the entire dynamic shifted, because you can privately grow apart from 100 people in a lifetime and nobody blinks. But when a champion of Claressa Shields' magnitude publicly severs a friend of that many years, she is not just ending a relationship. She is issuing a statement. She is telling every business partner, every sponsor, every gym owner, every future collaborator, this person is no longer inside the wall. That is a boardroom-level decision dressed up in a caption, and the fact that Nigeria's name has been dragged through the same news cycle as the Queen's tells you exactly how heavy that unspoken message really landed. Public cutoffs are business decisions in the age of the algorithm. The Queen did not just delete a contact. She rewrote a chapter of her own biography in permanent ink, and she did it in front of the very audience that turned her into a millionaire in the first place. And here is another layer nobody in the comment section has fully weighed yet, baby. Look at the ages. Look at the years. Look at how long some of these friendships supposedly go back. Claressa Shields did not just lose a random new money friend. If the timelines being thrown around are accurate, some of these were people who knew her before the gold, before the belts, before the sponsorships, before the film deal, before the money moved. Those are the friendships you are supposed to be able to trust. Those are the people who saw the girl before she became the GOAT. And when those relationships collapse in public, the audience does not just wonder what went wrong. The audience wonders what could possibly be strong enough to blow up a bond that was supposedly built before the fame existed. That is the horror movie inside the reality show. That is the plot twist inside the drama. The people who were with you before the shine are the ones whose exit hurts the worst, because their exit rewrites the origin story. Which brings us to the meta question, the one Tea with Stella is going to leave sitting on the table for you tonight. Do you think Nigeria genuinely fumbled the friendship, throwing away years of loyalty because ego got louder than love? Or did Claressa Shields push her away, treating a real friend like a member of a staff roster once the money got bigger than the memories? Is Shalita the villain of this story, running live streams for clout while a family bleeds in public? Or is Shalita the only truth teller in a room where everybody else is protecting a brand? And what about Graham Gamer? Is he a brother doing exactly what brothers are supposed to do, standing on the wall for his sister no matter who is on the other side? Or is he pouring gasoline on a house that was already burning, turning a private family collapse into a public spectacle? Every one of you watching this has a different answer. Every one of you has a different loyalty. Every one of you is already typing your verdict into the comments before I even finish the sentence, and that is exactly how it should be, because this is not a story. This is a mirror. It is asking every viewer to decide what loyalty is worth, what family is worth, and what the price of proximity to power really is. Baby, drop your verdict in the comments. Tell Tea with Stella whether you are on Team Claressa, Team Nigeria, Team Shalita, or Team Graham. Tell me who you think has been feeding the leaks. Tell me who you think will be the next name to hop on a live stream and add another layer to this cake. Tell me whether you believe Remy Ma is genuinely staying out of it, or whether her silence is the loudest strategy of the entire year. Because when this story updates again, and honey, it will update, I want to know exactly which side you are riding for before the next receipt drops. And before you scroll away, listen to me carefully, because the next 24 hours in this saga are going to be louder than the last 30. Every time Claressa Shields' name has trended in the last 12 months, a new name has been dragged into the ring within a week. Every time Nigeria has gone live, a new receipt has surfaced within days. Every time Shalita has opened her mouth at that IHOP booth, the internet has fed her more views, which has fed her more courage, which has fed her more content. This is a self-sustaining fire, and the wind is only picking up. There is a reason your feed will not stop feeding you Claressa Shields clips. The algorithm knows a runaway story when it sees one, and this story has every single signature. Bloodline drama, money angles, a quote at the center, a silent rival on the sidelines, and an entire cast of characters willing to hit record every time the timeline gets quiet. Nobody in this cast is done yet. Not one of them. Which means Tea with Stella is not done either. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next chapter. Ring the bell so the algorithm can find you in the middle of the night when the next live stream explodes. Share this video with a friend who has been dying to know what really happened, because you and I both know they need this breakdown. And come back tomorrow, because I am already working on the next episode, and this one connects a name to this saga that nobody in the comments has predicted yet. A name that has been quietly hovering on the edge of every single one of these stories, and honey, when I tell you the receipts on that person are already sitting on my desk, believe me, you are going to want to be here when I pour the cup. I am Stella. The tea is always hot here. And baby, this pot is nowhere near empty.